boundaries. Um, they're things that we all need, right? We need them in all areas of our lives. It's like having our own perimeter of protection, and it's the way that we maintain our level of peace. We have boundaries that exist emotionally with our well-being. We have them, physically with the space that we operate in day to day. We also have them intimately with what we need, as well as the need to feel safe with our partner. And we also have boundaries when it comes to the use of our time and the safekeeping of the things that we own, our personal boundaries, belongings rather. Um, our boundaries, you know, they are there whether we communicate them to other people or not. But it's not helpful, really, if we don't make the people in our lives aware of our boundaries, because then they can easily violate them, right? Does that come easy? Absolutely not. And then there are times that, people won't understand, or they won't agree with what we, you know, challenge them to respect. But the thing about boundaries are, we don't need them to understand because they're for us. And our boundaries are necessary in order for us to live the life that we deserve. Now, our boundaries can be healthy or they can be unhealthy. Why are our healthy boundaries important? They are because they are an important and a vital tool that we need. We need those to um, make sure that we have our needs met. They allow us to retain our identity, to prevent other people from taking advantage of us or manipulating us, also to promote healthy relationships with other people. They allow us to be assertive in the right situations, not being passive, but not being aggressive either. So it's kind of a middle ground. And they empower us to strive for personal goals and establish empathy for others the same way that we would hope that people, do us in return. And, we never have to fix other people's problems unless you truly want to, right? Some people, including myself in the past, have dealt with being a fixer. But ultimately, welcome, Anna. Ultimately, people are supposed to resolve their own problems. So, our healthy boundaries are important because you don't have to get sucked into pointless arguments with your friends, family, heated debates. Not every single thing that your family member does or your partner or your friends bothers you. And you can let them get caught up in all that drama, right? Because who has time for that? The world already gives us enough to deal with, outside of letting other people bring their drama to our plates. So before we set boundaries, so we it's helpful to know what your needs are. What is it that you need to stay healthy, whether that is emotionally, physically, spiritually, without losing your sense of identity and who you are. You have an absolute right to set boundaries. Now, keep in mind that you control whether that boundary is going to be a firm boundary and unchanging, or whether there is some wiggle room in that. Okay. So now, if you're a person that isn't sure about your boundaries, what you can do is you can make a list of what's important to you. What are your core values? What is it that makes Lori happy? What is it that makes Alexis happy? And so forth. What makes you feel safe? Because how important is safety to you? It's very important to me. Um, Now, if you are a person who's more on the introverted side, like myself, or like to say ambivert, a little bit of both, I have a meter, I have a social meter when I'm out and about. There is a time limit for social settings. I don't enjoy, huge crowds for long periods of time. I also know how I like to be spoken to, how I like to be treated. My personal space is very important to me. Can either of you relate to that? Um, I know that Lori is driving. I don't know if you can unmute, but are you able to share one or two things that you value personally in the chat or out loud? Anything that you value in life that's important to you? Got Alexis typing.
Is it okay if I
Oh
say
yeah, go
something?
ahead.
Okay,
Sure,
sorry for the background noise.
you're fine.
Thank you. I value peace and quiet.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think the older I get, that moves up on the ladder. Definitely.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for sharing. And then Alexa says, communication, my feelings. Oh, yeah, that's huge too, because in my opinion, communication is the number one killer of relationships, because when you don't communicate, there are assumptions being made. And especially if you aren't actually in front of the person or you're not on the phone, text messages get misconstrued. And yeah, our feelings need to be expressed, right? And a lot of people grew up in households where there were little to no boundaries. So the setting of boundaries may not come naturally. If you grew up in a household or an environment where you experienced any type of child abuse or neglect, then this likely left you with maybe a loss of control over your body, your thoughts, your voice, your own voice. Inadequate communication, like we just said, um, or not feeling heard or not being seen can often leave a child feeling afraid or confused or insecure, like who am I? And so when you grow up and you start navigating life and you're in a position where you need to set a boundary, you may feel hesitant, due to anticipated confrontation, or you might feel guilty. So as we move along, I'd like you to just think about your personal life and your personal boundaries. Where do your boundaries need an adjustment? All assets of life, emotionally, physically, all the areas. Just think about that, right? And we should all strive for an inner boundary that helps us refrain from hurting others, and an external boundary that helps protect us from the actions of other people. Think of it as two circles, one inside the other. At the same time, we don't want to have boundaries that are so tough and so rigid that we become isolated because we aren't allowing anything in or anything out. And then we end up living in isolation. You know, we don't talk to people, we don't go out, we don't do anything. And then on the flip side of that, having boundaries that are too weak can leave us extremely vulnerable and prone to being hurt, right? And nobody wants that. Um, Now, having healthy boundaries might look different for you, might look different for me, depending on what the situation is. For example, say you had a, heated discussion with someone and they called you out of your name. They need to know that that behavior is completely unacceptable and that any future interactions is going to require respect, right? If somebody's hurt you and then after you explain, hey, this is how this made me feel, and he or she does not take accountability, um, then that boundary needs to be set in whatever way that you see fit to maintain your peace and your well being. Thinking back, I had to do this with someone, hmm, maybe about a little bit over a year now, with a very close family member, and it hurt like hell. It was very painful, but I'm at peace with it at this point, and I also think that having to welcome Wally, we're just talking about having healthy boundaries and setting those boundaries with family right now. I think that when we have to navigate our family boundaries, it's tough. It is one of the toughest things to deal with, especially with our elderly family members, because, we have a certain amount of respect for them. They've lived longer than we've lived. And, older people, they kind of, they go through the change of feeling more alone. When the kids grow up, the kids go to college, the kids get married, and they go on with their lives. Um, they have to understand, though, we are responsible for our own happiness, not the other people. It's not your grown children or your grandchildren's responsibility to make you happy. And sometimes setting that boundary with family can be tough. But like I said earlier, our boundaries are for us. People don't have to accept them. They are for our mental well-being. And not only emotionally, our boundaries, our physical boundaries. Welcome to everybody that joined, Nani, Ken, Lily, I think Acadia as well. We're just talking about the importance of our boundaries, and that, it's not for other people to understand. It's for us. We have to make those decisions because we need them. And I also spoke about, which is going to come into play a little bit later, when we think about our boundaries, thinking about them in terms of two circles, um, having an internal circle that helps protect us from other people's actions, and then the external circle outside of that as the one that, keeps us from hurting other people. You have a question or comment, Acadia?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know how the pattern for this session is. I just would like to ask a quick question. Can I, or should I put it for the later part of
No,
the call?
no, no. You got the
Oh,
mic.
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. You said something so critical for me, especially as an individual. You said the boundaries are not for others to understand; it's for your well-being. And I think
Mhm.
that almost feels like, like somebody just opened a vent somewhere and I could get the air again in my body. It's so
Totally.
relieving to hear that. But I want to understand, in my life, when I put boundaries, in my most recent relationship especially, people have told me I'm very rigid, I'm not flexible. I've been told that you expect too much, things like
Hmm.
that. And it almost feels like when I put boundaries, for example, being clean. For
Mhm.
me, it's important for a person to be clean if you're living with me.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
that's called as you're very you're very you're very high standards, or you're very difficult to live with, or things like that. So, not to belabor, but I just wanted to know if you're going to cover some aspects of what happens when the way people react when you put boundaries, and what you can do about it. So that's
Oh,
it.
yes.
Thank you.
I definitely will. If you definitely hang on to the very end, I am going to talk about.
Sure.
I'm just setting the stage, if you will. But I will say I did talk about the type of boundaries, and you mentioned the word rigid a little bit ago, and I'll go back to that when I was talking about those two circles. When we think about having our boundary, our inner boundary as a circle that helps us from being hurt by other people, and then the external boundary or the extra circle on the outside that helps protect others from um, the actions of others. And we don't want our boundary to be so rigid that we become isolated. Not rigid because other people don't like the rigidity of it, but because we don't become so isolated that we are protecting ourselves from others, and we have a wall and not a fence, so no one can get in. Does that make sense? Um, but the people who are telling you that your boundaries are so rigid are the people that want to disrespect your boundaries. So if you're living with me, you obey my rules. That's just what it is. And so if you feel that my rules are too rigid for you, then the door is over here. That's just how I feel about it, right? So um, I was talking about physical boundaries. Um, it can be as simple as not wanting to shake hands with someone or give someone a hug, whether it's meeting somebody that has come into your life or you have an existing relationship. You might say, um, I don't shake hands, but I'm happy to meet you. Taking it back to what children are sometimes taught, give Uncle Johnny a hug may not be what that child needs to do. Or as an adult, you may just not feel comfortable doing so, or, being touched by somebody that you don't know. Like, respect my space, and an apology or an explanation is not needed. Expressing our needs, expressing our desires also stretches into our intimate relationships, work environments, and the management of our personal time. Healthy boundaries equal taking responsibility, for your own actions and emotions while not taking responsibility for the actions or emotions of other people. The latter part of that leads to codependency or neediness. And there's often a cycle of highs and lows, breaking up to make up. But in essence, each party of that relationship lacks strong, healthy boundaries. You sacrifice what you need and what you want by removing your boundaries. For example, you'd make a decision that you're not going to go out with your friends because my spouse or my significant other told you they'd be jealous. That's toxic. You don't take a job because now I'm required to move for that job, but person XYZ may not be happy. You can't live for other people, right? Or maybe you are focused on another person's issues at the detriment of your own emotional health. Anybody ever done that? And you just kind of lose yourself in that whole situation? Alexis saying, yeah. Um, or you have a fear of abandonment and rejection. So you do things to avoid being left alone, right? And that's often rooted in childhood. Or you don't stand up or don't speak up for yourself because, you know, you don't want to mess things up. In each of these little examples, one person is either taking responsibility for the actions that are not theirs, or they're demanding that somebody else is taking responsibility for their actions. And, people who do this, people who blame other people for their own emotions and actions, they do it because they want to believe that, hey, if I put the responsibility on others, then they'll love me. They'll give me everything I've always wanted and everything I've always needed. They get into the victim role. Somebody's going to come and save you. Nobody's coming to save you, sweetie. And then on the other side of that, if you take the blame for how people feel, as I said, I'm a recovering fixer, you're trying to save somebody. And if you can't fix your partner, then if you can fix your partner, then you're going to get the love and appreciation that you're seeking. Can anybody relate to that? Anybody ever been on either side of that coin? It's it's crazy.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love what you said, recovering fixer. Oh, that's me.
Mm. Yes, yes, we will get there. It's a process sometimes, because for me being the oldest child, I was the delegator, I was the overseer, and so that kind of that bled over into relationships. Welcome to is it Jazz? Just talking about blame and fixing and how important it is to maintain our boundaries. When we have poor boundaries, it can put us at risk for toxic relationships, like the examples I gave just a few minutes ago. Taking on more than we can really handle, or blaming ourselves for a situation that the other person had just as much responsibility. That can lead to shame or self blame. I remember having to in a relationship with someone that I love very dearly, and it caused him a lot of pain. I mean, breakups are hard either way. But because of the pain, I carried a lot of guilt because of how good he was to me and how amazing our relationship was. But it was time. We were on different paths in life. How many know that choosing ourselves is never wrong? Growth and choosing to honor your faith is never wrong, right? But the unhealed version of myself struggled with that for a long time. So I'm going to call your names one by one. And if you don't say anything, I move to the next person. But what I'd like you to just take yourself off mute and just share one area in your life that you've had a difficult time setting a boundary. And we don't have, time to go into the story. I just want to know, was it an emotional boundary, a physical boundary, a work, family, social boundary? What type of boundary has been the most difficult for you? So Alexis, you're first on my screen.
My answer would be emotional.
Okay, emotional boundaries. Okay, thank you. Lori, I know you were driving. I don't know if you can unmute. Maybe not. Wally, what's been the hardest for you?
I think mostly it's been saying no. Like people get me to do things I don't want to do all the time.
Okay, so maybe like people pleasing then. Okay. Acadia? Nani?
Yeah, so mine's definitely emotional. And it's mainly being able to set boundaries with people that are in the same space as me, whether
Okay.
friends or just acquaintances or family or partner. Like if they're in the same space as me, it's harder
Mm-hmm.
for me that as than if they were like further away. You know.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So you feel kind of obligated.
Yeah, like I try to place them, but it's just people don't respect them, and so it upsets me. Yeah.
Mm. It would make me mad too. Let's see who's next. Lily? Dot? Go ahead. Can you unmute?
Oh, you're so smart. I do that all the time. But no, I got a phone call, so I had to get out of the group for a while to talk, and then get back on. But
Okay, you're fine.
so the question is, can you
Oh
reframe
yeah,
the question?
sure, not a problem. So if you could just tell me one area of your life that you've had difficulty in setting a boundary, just the category, whether it's a physical, emotional, work, family, social boundary.
Wow, I could almost click each one of them. But
Mm,
I will say, physical, particularly as a child, I was molested, and then when I got a little older, and that was my very close friend's father. And then as I got older, there was an issue with my dad and I, and so there's those kind of things that are physical and emotional that have really uh, they they hit home in the back of my mind.
yeah.
So I don't know if
Mm,
you call that emotional, but it's
okay.
setting boundaries is, I think, the number one thing that I need to do. And
Okay.
actually have a book on boundaries. You can get it at any bookstore, but they actually have a workbook, and then they have a book to read through, and then they have a workbook. And I find that to be extremely helpful, because it's just a matter of us setting up a point where we go like, no,
Mm-hmm.
you know
Mm,
no, I'm not going to accept that.
yeah.
So anyway,
And no,
that's my
and no is a complete sentence.
yeah. And so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable in the room. Okay, Acadia, you're back. Would you like to share?
Yeah, for me, definitely it's work. That's number two. Actually, number one is, what do you call a boundary that goes something like, I don't want you to do that. That is not okay by me. Is that an emotional boundary?
I mean, it depends on what they're doing. I mean, if it's if it's something physical, then that's physical. If it's something insane or making you feel uncomfortable,
Like, don't put your shoe there.
that could be a just your space, your personal space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's exactly. So personal space, number one. Number two is work. These have been
Okay.
very difficult and challenging for me.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Let's see who we're missing. Lily, did you want to share or I think Josh left. If not, it's okay. Thank you all for sharing that. For myself, I would probably say emotional. I can relate to a lot of what you guys shared. I don't know if any of you have heard my first call, but I've grown up with abandonment and rejection issues my whole life, losing my mom at 3 years old. Um, by a loss of life through suicide and abuse and different things like that. And so, yeah, emotional has taken a lot to get to where I am. But the thing about all of that is we can build better boundaries. So welcome, Heidi. You're just in time. We're getting ready to do an exercise. So, just really quickly, we kind of shared what's been our most difficult area in life to deal with our boundaries. Emotional, physical, work, family, or what have you, and that we all should strive to have or envision our boundaries as two circles, an inner circle and an outer circle, right? One to kind of protect us and from hurting others, and the other to kind of protect others from us, but not being so rigid. We've got to be flexible. But no matter what your boundaries are, you determine what they are. You determine whether they're extremely flexible or more rigid. And anybody that does not respect your boundary, they may not need to be in your life, or may need to be recategorized. So I want to do a short exercise. If you all are able to, except for Lori if you're driving, but just imagine. First, I would like everybody to just close your eyes. Close your eyes while I'm talking. Welcome, Diana. We're doing an exercise. If you're able to, just close your eyes for a few minutes. Now, while your eyes are closed, I would like you to visualize yourself in the center of a room surrounded by two circles, one inside of the other. Think about what your two circles are made of. That can be anything that you choose, whether it's rocks, concrete, glass, wood, steel, flowers, a fence, whatever you want it to be. Imagine the details of your boundaries. How high is each one? How thick are they? Do they have colors? Make them whatever you need to be welcome and helpful as you picture them. Remember, these are your personal boundaries. Imagine making each one very strong and very powerful. Now, imagine making them flexible, just enough, not too much to where you have no strength in them, but the ability to move. Now, slowly take each boundary and open them up. Then close them again. Stay inside your closed boundaries for a few, just allowing yourself to feel safe, to feel protected and strong when you are within them. Once you have envisioned what your inner boundary looks like, you have total control over that boundary. You have formed your boundary. Now, open your eyes. Can you see them? If you can see them, you're ready to use them. I encourage you guys to visualize your boundaries every single time that trouble or stress or, you know, disrespect comes your way. You'll know that they are there to help you. Picturing them surrounding you and protecting you in your moment of need,
Why
right?
are there two though? I mean, I could only visualize one. I was getting confused with having a second one. Plus, the instructions were very fast, so I couldn't visualize two of them.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You mean when I explained what the circles were?
Yep.
Okay, I can go back through that. So basically, like, we should strive for an inner boundary. The inner boundary helps us not hurt other people, right? And the external boundary helps to protect us from others. So, in the terms of the two circles, the one inside, which is our inner boundary that keeps us safe, is the inner circle. The one that's on the outside of the inner circle, or the external circle, is the one that helps protect us from the other people. So we got one for ourselves so that we don't hurt other people, and the one on the outside so that they don't hurt us. And then you are determining just how flexible or how stern or rigid you want them to be. Does that help? Yes, no? You still there?
I'm driving, that's why. Sorry. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's very clear. Yeah, just give me some time
Okay.
if you're asking me, because this is just getting excruciating. I can't wait to reach home. Thanks.
Okay. Be drive safe though. So just envisioning what you want them to be, because they're yours, and you're making them yours. Whatever you need to do to make yourself feel safe, basically. So before I share some power statements with you, does anybody else want to say anything, add any comments, questions for me? We got Alexis giving a heart. Okay. So I'm going to read these power statements. So our boundaries should sound like this. Words to live by. It is not my responsibility to make sure others are responsible. It is not my job to rescue people from their drama. It is okay if others get angry. It is okay to say no. It is my job to make me happy and figure out what brings me joy. It is not my job to think, feel, or live for others. I have a right to feel my feelings no matter what anyone else feels about my feelings.
Did she mute? Yeah.
I'm
Monaye.
on.
Yeah, I think we lost you. Thanks for asking.
I'm
You should
still
unmute.
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Hello?
can hear you now.
I can.
Okay. What because I didn't go out, I was reading. What do you remember the last thing I said?
Was it like 8?
Let's see. Because what I have something on my phone. I think that may be why it did that. Let me see if you can hear if I do that again. Can you hear me right now?
I can.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. No one has a right to enmesh with my thoughts, emotions, or other people. It's okay to spend time alone without explaining myself. I do not need permission to be who I am, think what I think, nor to honor me. Other people have every right to not like me or disagree with me, but they do not have the right to disrespect me. I have a right to end draining conversations and relationships. I am enough.
Wonderful.
Dot.
I got 7 out of that.
All right.
But I really like the idea when you talk about boundaries. This is something that I've struggled with but as I get older, I mean, I'm in my 60s now. So as I get older, I'm not as tolerant of people that are trying to, um, kind of get beyond my boundaries. I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
what's weird is that I have pets. I have had pets all my life, and I can
Mm-hmm.
easily say, I don't have to be violent. I don't have to do anything. I just put my hand up with my fingers spread and I say
Mm-hmm.
no.
Mm-hmm.
And that, so they know that boundary, my pets that I've had over the years. But it really works with people as well,
Yeah,
especially if they don't speak your language. Um,
correct.
so, uh, it's called the international stop sign. And I've used it a lot in my life. And, but that's something that kind of empowered me to know that and to be able to use it.
Yeah.
And then usually with people that speak English, I can just say no. But there
Mm-hmm.
are times when I've had to just say no, and I don't care what they do because they may
Right.
blow up, they may be angry, they may be happy, they may be respectful of it. Who knows? But
Mm-hmm.
I say that to like to empower myself and keep myself safe.
I love it.
Um,
I
but
love it.
I'm not good with like family members uh, you like neighbors, friends, that kind of thing. So as far
Mm-hmm.
as your circles you were talking about, the inner circle, I immediately thought of my family because they're pretty
Mm-hmm.
much, they've got my back.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
as the outer circle, I I was struggling with that to envision people, because I feel like my family, it's very small right now because my parents have passed and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I I find that my immediate circle, the smaller circle, is pretty much my family, and they will
Mm-hmm.
encourage me to set a boundary.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
but I'm still not that good.
But it's a process, just like everything else in life, there are ebbs and flows, and I think that it's powerful that, you know, you have found something that makes you feel empowered. And like I said before, no is a complete sentence. And for the people who don't understand that, then those are the people who don't respect your boundaries anyway, or they're looking for a way to disrespect it. So um just keep going. Keep
Thank
going.
you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? About to close out here.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm currently trying to put a boundary with um, a person who I had a relationship with. He's my ex, and it's very hard. He tries to be a friend, but he's really not a friend. Okay, he tries to say, "Oh, you're my friend," but then he goes and plans a whole trip, and he's not even told me about it till he's booked his tickets and everything, and he tells me very like almost like oh, by the way, I'm going. It's almost like he's been hiding it from me on purpose for whatever the reason, right? In a half mile, turn left
Hmm.
onto I just want to just be done with this guy. I don't know. I
Okay.
at the same time don't want to get ballistic with him. I don't want to make him sound like I'm upset. I want to be cold in just the right amount. How do I do that? Kind of
You
giving
have
him
to, okay. So,
giving him a signal that I'm okay with the narcissistic shit that he's been doing for 4.5 years and still continues to do it as a friend, quote unquote. I just don't know how to convey it because I don't want to break the relationship either because I I kind of know that he might have some good things. I'm also getting narcissistic, I think, in the process, to be honest with you guys. I'm like, yeah, I'll get stuff from you just like you got from me, you know, information, good tips, whatever it is. So it's like,
you
I don't want to
know,
break. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I don't, obviously I don't know the ins and outs of your relationship, only you know that. But you said two things. You said in the beginning that you just want to be done with it, but then you said that you kind of want to keep the friendship. And honestly, there are very few, thank you, Lori, very few people that I've maintained friendship with after a relationship, because that line is very tricky. And if he's a
Right.
narcissists
Yes.
only want control. It's about control. It's not about wanting to be your friend. I'm
Right.
just going to say that. And if you want to be done with it, you can care about someone, you can want the best for them, but that doesn't mean they have the right to stay in your life. And if you want peace, and I think I can't remember who said something about peace early on, but I'm almost 50 years old. I need peace. Okay. And
Yeah.
if you want to be done, you just be done. You stop talking to him, you stop responding, block him or whatever the situation is. Let him know this is what I want, nothing else, and don't say anything else.
Yeah,
That's just how I feel about
the problem is I am living in his house. He does
it.
not live with me.
Oh,
Yeah, he does not
oh,
live with me, but
okay.
I am paying rent. I'm not living free. I'm paying rent. So I could tell him
Mm,
that I want to terminate my friendship with you, but we could be tenant and landlord. I just don't know how he's gonna take it. He is a little vengeful. So
mm,
that's the current situation. If I wasn't even living in his house, I wouldn't have even asked you this question, to be honest. I would have known what to do.
yeah,
So I mean, getting out of the house is right now not possible for me for mainly two reasons. One is the rent is obviously much more helpful for me at this stage of my
mm-hmm.
life, and I'm actually not having a job. So
Okay.
that's pretty much the whole I find myself in.
Are there any friends or family that you could possibly go to temporarily?
Oh God, that would be a huge shift, and you can't even fathom the issues I'm having right now with my health. So for me to move now would just aggravate every inflammation in my body, just the stress of it.
Okay.
So I need stability right now just so I can heal. I'll quit my job so I could heal. It's actually pretty bad for me right now.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I pray that, something works out. I believe that, you know, the good Lord is always working for us, even when we don't see what's happening, and that something good will come of it. But you definitely should communicate your boundaries. And like I said, it's for you, regardless of who likes it and who doesn't. Dot,
Thank you. I
you're
appreciate your help.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dot, you had a comment?
Sorry, I did that again. My
Oh,
mic was muted. But anyway,
okay.
yeah, I just saw Jay and Robert join in, and I think it's important that we involve the guys in these groups,
Yes,
um,
absolutely.
because we can get their perspective on things.
Yes,
That's
yes.
all.
Welcome. We're a little bit at the end, but just so far tonight, we've talked about the importance of our boundaries, and the different categories that we can um, exercise our boundaries: personal, work, emotional, and that regardless of who respects your boundaries, who has something to say about it, who doesn't like it, the boundary is for you, right? And we want to strive for healthy boundaries, not poor boundaries that lead us to staying in, toxic relationships and friendships that we don't have to be in, right? And I don't know if you guys, we have 10 minutes left. I don't know if you have any personal situations. Earlier, we shared about some of the most difficult areas that we've struggled in with personal boundaries in our lives. If you want to chime in on that, feel free. Jay or Robert or anyone else. Susan, I see is in here. Heidi.
Well, we've got quite a quiet group of men.
And that's
Come on,
okay
guys,
too.
talk.
That's all right. But for anyone who didn't come on earlier in the beginning, all of these episodes do appear on Spotify, usually about 3 to 4 days afterwards. So it's Circle Support on Spotify. You can either search through there or just search my name. And then they appear on YouTube a little bit later. So feel free to check them out. You can hear, this is what, week 6. So I'll have 6 episodes up there. So feel free to check them out. And Jay's just listening. That's perfectly fine. Thank you for joining tonight. So I just want to say thank you all for giving your input, for being vulnerable, for knowing that this is a safe place, no judgment, and we are all on a journey, right? And sometimes there are bumps along the way, but I think that if we can just pull together and know that you're not alone, that you have a space like Circles provides for, support, then that's really what community is about. So with that, I just say thank you all for joining, and I hope you guys have a great night. Please leave some written feedback. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And where did you say your podcasts or your recordings were? On
Oh,
Spotify?
they're all on the Circles station on Spotify. Spotify Music. You download the Spotify app.
Uh-huh.
Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to Circle Support, it shows all the classes that are recorded, and you can search by my name and pull them up.
Wonderful. Thank you. And how do I pronounce your name?
It's Monaye.
Monaye. Okay. Thank you,
Yes.
Monaye.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you to you, Monaye.
Thank you.
Yes,
You're
thank you,
welcome.
Monaye.
You're very welcome. All right. Take care. See you next week.